Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 628, and today's date is March 29th, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief for Saturday. Before I get started, I just want to thank all those people that have given a donation to the X22Report.com site. I am really grateful. I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand in Greece, the IMF, the Eurozone, continually, ongoingly gave Greece more and more debt. Now, while they were doing that, it seemed like everything was fine. Yes, we're going to keep giving them debt. We'll keep their credit rating up and everything will be fine. And we see now that Greece is fighting this and they don't want more debt. And we see that the rating agencies are saying, they're not going to take on more debt. We must lower their credit rating. And we see that Fitch downgraded Greece from a B to a triple C. And we see that Russia, where they do not have a lot of debt, their credit rating by the U.S. credit rating agencies is continually lower. The Daigong credit rating agency in China has them at AAA. So we can see the very big difference on how they judge each one of these countries. And can we really trust the credit rating agencies of the United States? Because they all told us back prior to 2008 when we had this incredible crash of the stock market that these subprime securities, they were AAA rating. They were perfectly safe. There's nothing wrong with them. And it turned out to be a huge lie. And we can see that most of these nations across the world right now that are supposed to be the allies of the United States, they're continually maneuvering away from the dollar. We see that Denmark is now looking to join the China-led infrastructure bank. We see Russia at this point, it was kind of obvious that they were going to go ahead and join the China-led infrastructure bank. But we see many nations now are looking at this and saying, you know something, we need to protect ourselves because we understand that as we get closer and closer to the collapse, the dollar is going to be hit hard. And we don't want to be holding the dollar as our only currency in reserve. So they're protecting themselves, and they are they're looking to talk with China, create bilateral trade agreements. They're putting in trading hubs in their countries, like Switzerland, like the UK. And it looks like, from everything that we've been looking at, that most of these countries are protecting themselves. And this is exactly what they're doing. Now, here in the United States, we can see and we know that most of the economic data that's coming out of the U.S. government central bankers is completely made up and manipulated. We've proven this over and over and over as we report what's going on in the economy. Even though they're continually telling us that everything is fine, real estate's great, retail's great, unemployment is at this lowest point ever since the Great Recession of 2008, we know that this is all a lie because what we are looking at doesn't make sense and it does not fit into their numbers whatsoever. And we know they understand the collapse is coming. They realize that when this comes, they're going to have to control the people. And we see strange things occurring like the militarization of the police force. We see them removing more and more of our rights. And here's another story where the SWAT teams now can enter your home without a warrant, thanks to a stunning new court ruling. And right now, the SWAT teams, because of a federal judge in Nevada, they have the right to smash down your door with a battering ram without a warrant and shoot you with pepper balls in order to take over your property. This is coming from U.S. District Court Judge Andrew Gordon, concluded in a case called Anthony Mitchell versus City of Henderson. The Mitchell's attorney argued that events violated their client's First, Third, and Fourth Amendment rights. The Third Amendment makes it illegal for the government to seize private homes for use as quarters for soldiers and has really been focused a federal case. The attorneys contended that the Third Amendment applies to police as well as military. And now that we see police becoming militarized, this quartering this quartering amendment comes into play. And we have to ask ourselves, are the police military at this point? Can they just come into our homes and use it whenever they want without a warrant? Well, according to our rights, no, they cannot. They cannot just come into your home without a warrant and use it for whatever they want, even if they're spying on another neighbor across the road or whatever. They have to ask permission, and if you say no, they can't use it. But according to the U.S. District Court Judge Andrew Gordon, it seems like they might be able to do this at this point. And we can see, as we move further and further down the road, they're closing down the society. We talked about this in great length in other reports that I've done. And we can see, as time goes on, they're trying to remove more and more of our rights to convince people that you don't have the right. Soldiers can just come in at any time they want and use your home. They don't need a warrant. They can just smash down the door. They can search your cars. And we can see they're continually doing this non-stop because they are getting you prepared for when the collapse comes and they need to do whatever they need to do to keep control of the situation. And this is why our founding fathers fought, bled, and died, because they didn't want this to happen once again. And this is why they created the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, because they understood that this would happen again and you would need this as your protection. And the only way this can protect you is if all the people stand up and say, no, we will not allow this to happen. If we just sit back and just say, whatever, maybe someone else will take care of it, it's not going to work, as we've seen throughout history. Unless we make a stand, nothing will change. Now, out in Nigeria, we see they're having elections right now. And according to a report by Nigerian Watch, a UK-based magazine for Nigerian communities, hundreds of U.S. Marines are now being stationed in Ghana as the Nigerian elections begin to take place. Now, they're there just in case they have to evacuate U.S. citizens in Nigeria. But considering the fact that Nigeria has been struggling with Boko Haram, and we know the United States would love to get into Nigeria, because as we know, Nigeria has a close relationship with China, and the Nigerian government said, no, we do not want the United States in here. Maybe the troops in Ghana are not there for evacuation. Maybe they're there to go into the country if the elections turn out to be in their favor, and all of a sudden they'll be able to raid the country. And we're going to have to watch that situation very, very carefully, because we can see all across the world right now, they are pushing war like crazy. Out in Ukraine, we see the village of Shirokino, and we reported on this, that the Kiev troops were moving massive amounts of artillery up to this area, and we can see that the port city has come under fire now. And this is being reported by the OSCE, saying, yes, they are now under intensive shelling. So we can see the Ukrainian government, they are continually pushing war non-stop. The Florida Air Guard is to deploy about 12 F-15C jets and about 200 airmen to Europe as part of Washington's military buildup, which claims it is necessary to protect the European NATO members from Russian aggression, which we know there is no Russian aggression. It's on the other side. I mean, think about this for a second. If the corporate media was out there telling everyone that Russia is parading their troops through the Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, and they're moving their military assets all through this, having a parade, they would look at this and say, look, they're the aggressors. They're the ones who are pushing war. Look what they're doing. They're showing us that they're getting ready for war. But what's really happening is the United States that's doing this. And no one thinks in their mind like, why are they parading all of this? Of course, it's a propaganda stunt to show everyone that the United States is protecting all of these states. But if it was the opposite way, the story would be completely different. The fighters and troops from the 125th Fighter Wing of the Florida Air National Guard are to go to Europe in mid-April. The U.S. Air Forces in Europe reported this week that the F-15 F-15C Eagles are equipped with advanced air-to-air radar and sniper targeting equipment that allows visual tracking at extremely long ranges. The unit is to replace the 12 A-10s from the Davis-Monmouth Air Force Base in Arizona, which had been deployed since February. So they're rotating the troops out and the planes at this point. Now in Yemen, the situation is getting worse and worse. The UN staff now has been evacuated, and we can see that they've gone in the middle of the night and they removed about 100 UN staff and more than 80 foreign diplomats from the country. And there is a huge battle, and we can see that, as we know, the United States government, the central bankers, they're using the Saudi Arabia forces as their proxy army along with other coalition forces, because right now they don't have the authorization for war to go into this country, and they knew they needed to restore the puppet government in Yemen, and the next country is going to be Libya. I mean, if they succeed, it doesn't mean they're going to succeed, because right now they're in the middle of the battle. Now, the Houthi fighters, they started moving artillery from the Yemeni capital of Sana'a to the Al-Baqwa region close to the territory of Saudi Arabia. We can see that Saudi Arabia now is bombing the air bases, trying to retake all the air bases in Yemen, and this is happening in the capital at this point, and we can see this is fierce fighting going on. The people are protesting in the street, saying they do not want Saudi Arabia here. They don't want them bombing. Why are they doing this? We had nothing to do with this. And more of these people are siding with the Houthis, and we can see that they are creating an instance where the people, the entire country, is going to rise up completely against the United States government, central bankers, and the Saudi Arabia forces, and the coalition forces. And again, we're going to have to watch this very closely to see how this is going to turn out, because if the U.S. government can retake Yemen, they're going to do this in every single country. Now, if they lose the battle in Yemen and they continually keep Saudi Arabia and the United States forces out, the other countries are going to see this, and they're going to ramp up their fighting. They're going to see this as, yes, we can do the same thing, and the United States will completely lose the Middle East completely. And the people of these countries will take back their countries. They'll kick the puppet regimes out. They will sell the oil using euros, rubles, yuan, renminbi, gold, whatever. And most of these countries will say, hey, we don't need the dollar anymore, because they're not selling the oil using the dollar. We don't need to keep it in reserves, and they will send that back to the United States. The dollar will flood the United States, and it will reduce the value of the dollar, and we'll see inflation. And we're going to have to continually report on this and watch this. Now, the U.S. is going to boost the aid to the Saudi-led coalition. They're going to help with its air assault against the rebel forces in Yemen. The U.S. is going to provide the Saudis with more intel, bombs, aerial refueling missions for planes that are carrying out airstrikes, and other aid. And they're trying to pass this now in Congress. Italy is deploying warships to monitor the Libyan coast. Italy is sending a naval fleet to monitor the Libya coast and protect Italian shipping and oil rigs. Basically, what they're trying to do is stop those people in Libya that are not part of the puppet government from selling the oil to other countries not using the dollar. Basically, they're putting up naval blockades. And we see they're doing this in Yemen. They're doing this in Libya. And again, as things go on and things get worse and worse, we will see the United States government, central bankers, try to push the authorization for war, because they're going to say, look, the Middle East is in havoc, or they'll use the Islamic State, they'll use an event. But whatever they're going to do, they will push the authorization for war to get through Congress. And right now, it's just pending, and there's really no traction behind it at this time. And this is why we need a major type of event, or they need a major type of event to push this through, because otherwise, the United States is going to have a very hard time because they can't get involved in any of these countries. Now, we understand that the United States is holding the Jade Helm military drills, and we understand that this is an elite branch of the U.S. military, which is going to prepare to hold military training in about 10 different states. And they rated all the states, hostile, the ones they can pretty much take over very easily. And the most noticeable effect the exercise may have on the local communities is an increase in vehicle and military air traffic and its associated noise. And people are very nervous about this because it does look like it is a drill to practice martial law, to take over those states, those capitals, the people, when things go south. And I have a video up on the X22Report.com. I also have it on the YouTube channel. In this report, you can see it, where there is an exercise in Florida going on with black helicopters rounding up people and taking them off. And we can see that, as we know, when this collapse comes, they will try to control the people. They will take people away. They will use the lists to go after those people who they believe are a threat to their authority. I mean, we saw what the United States government central bankers did in Ukraine. They were in control of everything that was going on there. CIA, FBI were all in that country during the raid on the southeastern people. And as it was starting up, they went to the local police and asked for the lists of names of those people who would give resistance. And they handed it over at the time. And they went after those people. And we can see this is exactly what's going to go on here in this country. They will do the same exact thing. This is why they've been spying on, for many other reasons, but one of the reasons is to find those people, to find out who they're associated with, so they can go after them when the time is right. And we can see they are definitely preparing. What would be the purpose of having this drill in this country? Have we ever seen anything like this going back to the 60s, 50s, 70s? No. The reason they're doing this is to continually practice. We saw this a couple years ago in Florida, in Houston, in California, and many other areas. And they're ramping it up because they know eventually when this entire system goes down, they need to be ready. They need to see how people are going to react. And they're trying to get people used to it. Get used to the black helicopters flying around. Get used to the gunshots. Get used to the troops on the streets. Because once you're used to it, you'll think it's just another drill. But when the time comes, they're not going to announce that, oh, this is for real. Everyone's going to be out there looking out their windows, going out on the street saying, oh, look, another drill. We've had many of these. It's not a big deal. But in that case, this time it's real. And then people are going to be shocked. They're not going to know what's happening. They're not going to be ready. And this is why they are doing it. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.